right. We ready to call to order? All right. I'd like to call to order the July 27, 2023 Shade Tree Commission meeting. All right. Heather, could we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Ms. Adams,
Here.
Mr. Vanicolo,
Here.
Ms. Wagner,
Here.
Mr. Tomasco,
Here.
and Mr. Rice is absent tonight.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Can we pause for a moment of silence and then we'll stand for Pledge of Allegiance? Okay, if we could stand, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on to 4.1, consider approving the agenda. Does anybody have any comments or additions or revisions to the agenda? Hearing none. All right. All right, then all in favor for approving today's agenda? Aye. All right, motion passes unanimously. Since we don't have any public, there's no public comment. Did everybody have a chance to review the minutes from the June 22nd, 2023 meeting? Yes, okay. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from June 22nd, 2023? I got a first, second. All in favor? Aye, motion passes. All right, moving on. 7.1, reports from Township Arborist. John, what you got for us?
So obviously Farrier was just here.
Yes.
Permit went out, most of the shrubs, trees are kind of be. It's promised that it's not. Fishing or. Breeding activity. Obviously, in front of us.
Okay,
Other things, we have not done our tree inventory yet, we're going to focus on that.
Okay.
As soon as we can. George Aldis, past month, so.
okay. All right. So with Farrier Lane then, so he was not doing any kind of construction or anything like that?
Now, it sounds to me like his neighbor told him. How many trees? Have a permit, I did that.
Oh, okay.
He was actually very honest.
That's
If
awesome.
we see him again, then we know. Fine.
Okay, fantastic. All right, great. All right, nothing else? All right, yeah. All right, so I don't see our representative from the EAC. So we'll skip that. Approval of permits, we just handled the Farrier Lane issue. There's no action required. Land development review, we don't have any. Future development, Garrett Williamson, Sawmill, and Westchester Pike still on hold.
Westchester Pike, he knew his landscape plans were not finalized yet and didn't want to waste anyone's time in coming in, so he's anticipating an August review.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. We have no new business, so we'll move on to old business. So Rob, you put together a budget?
Yes, not finally, I have all the stuff.
Okay, put on your-
Rob next week, we get finalized, and then Bob can drop it off to Heather or.
Okay. So do we want to go ahead and, because I reviewed what did you want to share with the rest of the commission, what you have and
Why don't we do this, since
Hmm.
we don't have any new business, why don't we spend 10 minutes filling it out right now?
Sounds good.
And finalize it?
Yeah, that
like
sounds
it.
good. Let's do it.
All right, I guess we all agreed shirts for like for like
Events.
community events,
Mhm.
like the township logo saying Shade Tree Commission with our name on it. Basically, I've heard anywhere from 35 to 45. By the time these would order, I'd just put $50 a piece, times 5. So I did that. Also,
You're getting them for you folks, right?
yes,
If you guys are gonna get them, I would get all of
something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
I mean, the
something
township, the
presentable.
township supervisors have one, and we did that thing in the square, in the circle, they had that little thing, it was really nice, the shirts they had.
Yeah.
So,
township color. Like a big-
they were blue, yeah, they were just blue.
They have navy ones, we have maroon ones that we wear. We also have green ones that we're giving to us.
I think our website is basically a hair, like a
And
Well,
Green,
since
I mean, I
they're
don't think colors,
trees-
I don't think colors really make a difference, but
Yeah.
that could be
No,
decided,
that's big, it's-
Yeah,
has to be approved first, but anyway.
Yeah.
And then, I also put in, because there was a phone call that someone was traipsing around looking at trees on township property. And they thought it was me traipsing around, apparently it was you, John. No, it was you. Traipsing around looking at trees on township property, back behind like in the Newtown. Yeah, off of
oh,
Cherry
yeah,
Lane.
well,
But anyway, I figured if we're getting shirts, we might as well put in for safety vests with
we are.
township tree survey, just orange vest. If we're walking around, people will know what we're doing in a park, then why is this person with a computer taking pictures when my kid's there and getting a phone call and the cops locking one of us up? At least they'll know, they'll see that we're well identified, something like that. They're like with like pockets so you can put pens in them and stuff, like a nice vest. They're like $40 a piece, somewhere around there.
I think that's a good idea.
Something for measuring trees, like, I don't know what you use, John, but they have these things that, like, instead of running the measuring tape, they have these codex things that expand so you can measure the tree.
Bill Moore stick,
What's that?
Bill Moore stick is better. than that. Like,
Unless the tree isn't round. You can get different
You're
numbers.
talking about how they stand.
Yeah, you say so.
They're made out of urban recycled wood.
Oh, great. I got a lot of recycled wood up my house.
Special one once made. out
I
of
did,
that.
and I figured one of those, just a regular tape also, just in case. Get one of those also, they're like $50. The aluminum tags for marking trees were like, well. The little,
They're metal, they're both-
no, not the round ones, but like to identify what the tree is. Cindy was saying for like when they plant a new tree, so someone could say like, just write it, you can either engrave it in there with like an engraver or like with a pencil, put it's like a linden, whatever. I don't know if you have to put just on the little trees and stuff, like not every single tree in the township, but
So
Yeah.
the best thing to do is they have the. Look, it's this high. This high. Has a number on it. Inventory that when we do our inventory. There's that number on that small tree. Go on the website and look. This metal one's gotta come back and open them up because it's wrong for them.
what, the little tag that you put on a branch or something?
Because they're
Yeah,
water-
real light wire, I mean, whatever you prefer. I mean, I know when I'm at like Longwood or something like that, I like just looking at the tag real quick. I don't want to go on my phone and have to be looking at their website and everything like that. Something wants to know what a tree is.
Draw on that, indents the actual, metal.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, get them. Yeah, I mean, but I put in for them, they're like $50 for like 500. You could do that.
I think that's a good idea because then that just helps with education.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
outreach.
the little trees, just so people, if they walk in like, oh, what's that tree? Oh, I see a
Especially
bloom
in
or
some of
something,
the-
they can look real quick and say, oh, and not put like the Latin name, put like the regular standard
Common.
name, so
The
they know
common.
what it, yeah, the common. A banner for events. Shade Tree Commission, and stuff that we can hang, like they're like $150. I don't know if you'd want that engraver is like $30. Yeah, that in like a spare tip is like $8, just put in for that. And then the big thing would be the EAC wanted to do like a tree giveaway program, put in for it. The
It was
total
a
cost,
joint.
yeah, the total cost would be like 8,000, we split in between each other, so like 4,000 each. Thereabouts.
Those are girls apart.
I didn't add it up.
How many other than Rob, you got that up?
Got a phone?
3150, 3154, okay, 55. Well, what you said the Biltmore
Give
stick
it
cost?
to Tom.
Here, give it to
40.
me.
$40.
40.
Give me the numbers. What are they?
250, 200. 40, 50, 50, 150, and like 40, and 4,000.
4780.
Again?
4780, $4,780.
So but the 4,000, so really what we're
It's really
asking is
700.
Like
700.
$780.
Yeah.
4,000 is stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then there's the intern thing, but they said put no price in.
We do want to.
If you- But I thought they said no. Didn't know what's the name said? I
Did
think Steve did at that.
oh,
meeting.
Steve, yeah, I don't, oh, yeah, I
Did
don't
you? I mean,
remember.
I think,
said no. Put that in there.
did you write it someplace? I don't know. Intern to help an intern, just ask, put in no amount. That's what he said. when we
Okay.
met.
Right, because I think it's to be determined.
To-
So we're
Because
just
we
gonna
don't-
put it with,
Out of our budget, I think.
I don't think it would be through us. I think it would be,
Overhead, but now.
yeah, I don't know. But I think that's what Steve said at organizational meeting. So,
Go with that.
all right.
all right. So discussion? What do you
Or
think,
anybody
Carol?
have anything else? that they
Yeah.
Might want to add to it.
Yes.
What about, bars with the, copy ordinance? You are, we talked about that a while back, for like a nice glossy card, shade tree. Have all your names and member names on the back, you are that has our ordinance, what a heritage tree is, like some definition.
We've been waiting on that until the until the ordinance has been finalized.
You still finalize it, the bar will be the same,
Right.
and you still want people now, this is the win.
Right.
So it'll still be the QR code. And people can still understand that we have.
Okay.
QR never gonna change.
So Heather, would that be something, because I thought we had talked about that would be something that perhaps the township could do in-house? Or are you suggesting that it's something that we,
About something nice glossy, something very attractive.
okay, do we have an idea how much that might
So
cost?
Business Brand does, I know this, they do postcards.
Yeah,
I think it's under.
so $115 for 1,000, Cards.
I would get 2,000 because lose some.
Right.
Yeah, multiple, that's multiple years, not something like we're all the time, you stack forever, you're all.
right, okay,
We always have. That's $230 or something like that. Wow.
okay, add that. That
Idea.
sounds like a good suggestion, all right, I like that.
Basic brochure.
So his would be or are you talking about like a trifold brochure?
Oh, no, what?
That would work, okay,
Postcards.
yeah, yeah,
Postcards. Whole package. barcode.
I like that.
Future commission, member names.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Any other ideas, Carol? See you're noodling over there. All right, you think, Tom?
I can think of. It's a good start.
Yeah.
Once we get out there and we, start, once we get out there and figure out what we're doing, we'll be able to, add to it.
Okay,
You do so good.
No, I'm good there.
all right, I think that sounds good. So do you think of anything else, Carol? Nothing? Okay. All right, so, so do we need to fill out?
One of these for each item. That's what my wife told me. She gave me 10 things because she saw me working on it. She gave them to me this morning. Or last night.
Well, if
Yeah,
we
we
have,
should have them.
if we have 10 of them, people will take one of them too. All right. Everybody take one.
That's a lot of questions.
This
Just
is why
one for
me
each
and,
item,
that's why
right?
me and John were supposed to have dinner together. And go
Alright.
through this and write it out. He's not even listening.
Oh my gosh. All right, so this is gonna take a little more thought than just filling it out. I mean, we could fill it out for each item.
That's what we're supposed to do, right? One sheet for each item.
Oh,
Oh my God, I didn't know we were here that long. Like, I think most of this stuff is
I have an idea.
operating, not capital. Correct?
Yeah. So, yeah, none of it's capital.
No.
Well, I think we could come up with we could come up with one answer for all of these because they're applicable to every item that we're talking about, except maybe the 4,000 for the trees would be a little different. But we could come up with something standard, but I can't think about it right now. My brain's fried. I'm thinking a lot today. I'm giving it to me. This is on you.
This is-
I'm happy to work with you on that though, but if John wants to. Yeah,
Yes.
but there's like I mean, we have to fill out a sheet for each single item.
Staff is doing that.
Yes.
Doesn't work.
You could probably put the postcards and the banner on one sheet, all the materials on another sheet. Like, yeah, like a marketing sheet, an apparatus sheet.
Yeah, and then, material supplies.
Yeah.
There's a line item.
Okay.
Might still end up with like 4 or 5 sheets.
Just filling out what you're doing, they who did it. They're gonna have their full figure. We'll give it
I just need it by, I'd say, 3 weeks.
Okay.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say like tomorrow.
That's what I thought she was gonna say.
No, a couple weeks.
All right,
Steve said by your August meeting, they want to make sure we have everything to hand in and ready to go.
Okay,
all right.
all right. All right, so put the, Rob is tasked with that. All right, okay. All right. All right, so just to summarize, we're in agreement with the items that Rob proposed to put in for the budget, and we have, what's the due date again? In 3 weeks, 3 weeks?
Let's tell Rob the end of next week.
Okay, Rob's deadline
Me and him will meet, get the
is next week.
Dinner.
Okay. Okay,
treat, here you go.
I'll treat, I don't care. My business will treat.
All right,
Or if Tom wants me to give his credit card.
Sure.
all right, so we're ready to move on?
Do this over golf.
Whoever way.
As long as you don't have a quorum. All right.
Oh, that's right.
So, all right, so moving on, old business 12.2 ordinance update. Hi, Andy. Any word?
Now, I did forward your revisions to solicitor,
I saw that.
so I've not. You may want to go through your comments,
Yes. I thought we
but
could
I've
do
not
that.
heard back.
Okay. So,
Everyone has a copy in front of them.
okay, is it with the track changes in it too?
Look at the chat.
Okay.
I think, you know, all your comments are well noted. I just think that there's other things to, also clarify.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you don't mind,
Go ahead.
if you look in 158.3 under purpose.
Yes.
There's a sub note C where it says elsewhere in the township. It's way too vague.
So wait, where you see? Oh, elsewhere in, okay, so that's in the first paragraph. It says the purpose of this chapter is to promote the public health, safety, welfare within Newtown Township by establishing a commission to protect, manage, and exercise stewardship of trees of Newtown Township within public right of ways, A, B, township parks and open space, and C, elsewhere in the county. That's a good point. Or sorry, township.
So, I mean, that can be construed to mean private property. Not associated with the land development project.
Just right there.
Yeah. So I guess that's,
I mean, I do think that you regulate land development projects,
yes,
so maybe you want to have some clarification. That. In the purpose.
Legally say private property. Oh.
Well, I think subsection 10 says land development. project.
yeah,
Anything that's regulated by subdivision land development application. Such as, you know, like subdivision, pardon me,
I don't know.
yeah, I think,
So-
I read some of your notes, and I know that there were some revisions that you noted between the original draft and the final revision. That we see here. And I think that was a result of a discussion with the planning commission. Between the solicitor and planning commission.
okay,
And I think, as you heard when you appeared before them in regard to the enrollment development, there was a lot of concern about private property rights. So I think that some of the changes that you recognize between the original draft and this version, the current version, was a result of those conversations. So
okay,
there's got to be a little bit more language built in to clarify this separation between a private property not undergoing land development. But then we'll get in later about how we address the clearing of 6 or more trees, because that's something that happens later on in the ordinance.
Yeah.
So I think for now, I don't know if you want to amend that subject C to just reference any land development projects or any other project that may constitute a tree work permit. Maybe something to that effect.
so any land development or what was the other thing, sorry?
Land development or any other project that would require a tree work permit or subsection 10. I mean, that's just my suggestion.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, because I think this is where some of well, I would like clarity on what the township's expectation is or isn't for protection of trees on private property. Is it just the street trees? Because it does say in there about the 6 trees anywhere on the property. So if there isn't an expectation, so here's the rub, right? So most of the trees in the township occur on private property. And if the purpose of the ordinance is to preserve the tree canopy within the township, then the public or the private property is an important component of that. So if then maybe we need to talk more about refining the purpose, because right now the purpose is pretty broad. And so if the intent is really to dial it in and be more focused on those areas, then I think that might need to be revisited and really have a clear expectation of what the requirements are. And also, and that leads into why are we requiring replacement trees if there isn't some level of expectation those trees are going to persist, right? Because they're mitigating an impact, and that's a permanent impact. So that replacement is supposed to replace that function and value of that tree that was lost. And is there not some expectation that those trees are going to continue and persist? And so I would think that, especially on land development, like we can talk about Nolan, the Nolan property, because that's just a good example. It's nothing against, I think the outcome that we got there was good. I do. But I think it spotlighted some issues in the ordinance and maybe where we need some additional clarification. But
Well, that's
so,
why I think subnote C is so important,
okay,
because it was always my understanding that private property was less in your purview than I think was originally proposed.
mhm,
And I think it's really important, but then with the note in there under the tree work permit, it gave the illusion of requiring oversight on private property
mhm,
outside of the land development. And
Right.
that in itself needs work, because is that a cumulative effect? How do we?
Really simple fix. I mean, that should be, and I talked about this. Here we go. That should be just a quantity concept. So if you're removing 6 or more trees, any given time, require. The tree might be asked, might be a. Our job is to count
Mhm.
first.
right,
So we can go and make them replace. It might not be where those trees go, maybe anywhere on property. or
Right.
maybe in lieu of,
right.
but we need to be able to have some.
And as a result, I'm
No,
sorry,
okay.
but as a result, then we need a subnote D.
We need what?
We need a subnote D in the purpose. So
Yes,
Here again, to hone this in and to really focus on what the intent and purpose committee is. We need clarification in the purpose of the ordinance.
exactly.
So I think that subnotes A and B are clear.
Yes,
I don't think there's any ambiguity in those. Subnote C should focus on the land development portion of it,
yes,
and then subnote C or D an added subnote should say, and private property when this occurs through a tree work permit.
Say when 6 or more trees are being requested for.
But should it be considered like land clearing at that point?
I'm sorry.
That would cover land there.
No, but designated under like if it's private property, it's land clearing, even though, you know what I'm saying?
You can't get, you want to keep it simple, something that just triggers, so 6 or more trees would then trigger the land clear. Okay, and usually something with land clear.
With the development.
Well, sometimes.
So, 6 or more trees, that triggers our review.
Of what size, not just any size, right?
No, we'll pick size.
Yeah.
But even so, do we have right on, but do we have right on private property though? But do we have right on private property to designate that?
Well, I mean, we require permits for private property to build a deck or to build a house or to build a.
Put in your shed.
So, a shed or a drive, you want to put driveway in, so. I mean, I certainly understand. All of the concern about. Protecting private property, individual rights, I'm all for that. It's just, how does that intersect with this ordinance's purpose of the.
Exactly.
And that's why I think paragraph number 1 has to be clear.
Yes,
Cannot allow any ambiguity. If
Yes.
you have ambiguity in the purpose, it's
It-
a mess.
Interest 90%.
Exactly.
90% of the applicants.
Right.
Ash, either trees,
right.
I want more turf. Soccer. Then you get people that are, one people. A bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
We're gonna be able to control that. Happens, the more trees are removed without authorization, we're gonna go back in,
Mhm.
looking at imagery. There's 15 trees here. Remove them, sample and say, okay, most of the trees, 12 inches diameter, and that falls underneath our.
Right, right. So I agree with you, Andy. All right, so let me just. So I'm kind of doing this in real time on my copy on my computer.
Yeah, I think it's important to do it.
You know, sometimes I hate this thing. Right. Okay. So, but the intent is, so we're in agreement that if we're truly gonna meet the objective of the ordinance, which is to protect the tree canopy in the township, that has to include some level of
Oops.
oversight on private property in the event that they're removing 6 trees or more.
You already have.
But I don't, but to Andy's point,
Yeah.
it's not clear,
Oh, that's right. That's
Yeah.
why it's
Right.
there, it's not clear, it's gray.
right?
We're defining it now, so.
Yes. Okay.
You remove 6 or more and 6 inches greater,
Mm-hmm.
you gotta come see the big. It's just a protection. Protection gate.
So let me ask you a question. If they clear 3 trees greater than 12 inches in diameter this week.
Yeah.
And then
So,
next week, they
yeah,
come in,
we have solved that in other townships. It's within 1 year.
Okay,
It's
then we
within
have
1
to be clear on that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's-
so that's another defining.
Correct, and there's also a look back period. I told that gentleman. So you're 3 this year, 3 next year, 3 the following year, then all of a sudden you're coming in. Go revamp the house, there's a look back period, of 5 years. Which covers us coming, well, you pre-cleared so that you weren't gonna get the violations, of the replacement calculation. You can look back and say, that happens.
So I think we have a tree work permit definition. We could add some language to that to be more clear. And then we could add under the permit section, we could, well, once we get there, we can see what additional
okay,
wording we need to add to that.
okay, all right. Okay.
And I think the whole, I mean, if you're comfortable moving off of that, I mean, I think the next thing that under the same section, under category A, you had highlighted heritage tree. So I don't think we're going to plant a heritage tree. I think we're going to protect it. So maybe we want to take that out of the, well, we can preserve it, I guess, to the proper maintenance. So I think that.
Yeah.
But I think we want to make sure, how do we classify that? Is it your responsibility to classify it?
Yeah, so when we get to that one, because honestly, I'm deeply troubled with 158-10D1, that one is like, so when we get there, we can talk about that. One of my questions though, like going down to the end too, so there's a statement says providing, with under the purposes, it's providing the minimum regulation necessary to ensure the important resources are preserved wherever possible while accommodating landowners' property rights to make reasonable use of their property through compliance with other standards and other applicable township ordinances. Is that standard language in the land development code, or is this just in our ordinance? And if it's just in our ordinance, why is this
It's there
here?
to mirror every other ordinance. So like Saldo is different than she. Make sure that it cross-references. I'm saying. That makes sense? Yeah.
In the township? So all township ordinances have a similar statement?
They're making sure that if you don't, say somebody doesn't know about our ordinance, okay, they're following the tree replacement. You need to know that there's other ordinances in place, so that when just say they have to do their homework, review and see if there's other ordinances regarding what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of what that. Making sure we're covering the basics that like the ordinance and chapters.
Okay, I see that part.
Standard boilerplate.
I see that part, but I mean, do all the other ordinance also say providing a minimum regulation to ensure landowner rights, basically, is what that's saying?
So here again, I think that was the result of the conversation that was had between the draft and this version with the other boards. I
But
think that's why that's there current.
But we did not get an opportunity to comment on that after the other.
I'm not suggesting that you did. I'm just saying that's probably why it's there.
So is there a reason why that, I get the other applicable, I get that. What I think I'm having the most trouble with is like, we're saying that there's minimum regulation and accommodating property owner rights, which I totally get, but I don't understand why this to me is something that is inherent through everything that we do in the township. It just seems really odd that it's pinpointed here. And I'm only, so if gauging by the comments I received from other boards is that they think that we're overstepping bounds or that we're a bunch of tree hugging whatever, and we, shouldn't be doing this. And to me, this is just like trying to sort of rein in something that isn't, to me, this is extraneous and unnecessary. And it's sort of, quite frankly, I find it a bit insulting that of course that, we're no regulation within the township is going to go over and above. It's always going to be the minimum requirement. And of course, we're going to have the utmost respect for property owners' rights. So why is it in this ordinance here? Yeah. I mean, I just think it's I may be, I could totally be
You
that.
could ask the attorney,
Yeah,
and maybe you can do a copy and paste.
yeah, I mean, if it's standard language,
You need to simply say, the purpose is providing the minimum regulations as established above.
right,
You're establishing the purpose,
right,
under, in all of the sections above. So I don't know really why it's necessary. I think that there's an appeal right in the back of this ordinance that if a individual property owner is aggrieved by any way, anything that the
right,
commission would require, they
Mhm.
always have that option. Go to both the planning commission and ultimately the board of supervisors
hmm,
and use that appeal section 158-16
exactly,
to resolve the matter
right. Yeah, so
outside of this.
I just think that it's. Well, I'll reserve my opinion on why I think it's in there, but, okay, okay, let's move on. Do you guys have any comments about that or concerns? All right. Okay, so I'm in the definitions. Commemorative shade tree fund and shade tree fund were, the term was used inconsistently, so I'm suggesting that we just use shade tree fund, because I think commemorative to me sounds like, oh, well, I'm a citizen and I want to donate money for a plant to be treated to commemorate a lost loved one or something like that. I don't understand what the commemorative part of it is, and I think if we're using the fund as an in lieu fee to supplant the requirements of a tree replacement, then I think it's more general. I think it makes more sense to keep it general. So,
I think anytime we can add clarity and simplicity to an ordinance, but
absolutely. Absolutely.
and with the EAC, I think that comment.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be
I
there.
don't know that we need even a definition. We just need to spell it out in the ordinance.
We don't, that's why I said strike it, because
Right.
this is really.
Right.
It's really, this is more like would be in the glossary of acronyms, it's not really a definition, so it's an explanation of an acronym, so it really doesn't fit there anyway. Okay, so heritage tree, so we had all talked before that upon John's recommendation that trees that are over 36 dBH, they're sort of on their way out, they're older, and it's really more appropriate to say 30 inches dBH. So I tried to capture that there. And then I don't know what to do with the right of way. That's kind of one of the big,
I think we could simplify that as well.
okay,
Mainly either attach or refer back to our website. On the website under the Public Works Department, we have a road evaluation Excel spreadsheet, more or less, and it identifies all the township roads. It doesn't include any PennDOT roadways, but it identifies each and every township road that's dedicated, its cartway width and its overall right of way width. That
Yep.
chart can be simply attached to the back of this ordinance.
But it's private property with the right of way. Okay. But R60 or more would capture that. How do we even do that?
Well, I think the right of way is needed.
for the street
because
trees.
If you're calling it a street tree.
You're just going for the definition of a street tree.
No, this is
This is the
right-
definition of the right of way.
Why would we do that? Yeah, it does not.
Because the definition of street tree says it's any tree that's in the right of way.
For the definition, but for the management removals, it's at 6. It's
In
6 trees for, yes. Greater removal. 6 trees or more. Over property, it's our right of way.
No, I know, but the street trees, it's even if they're taking down one tree, that's a street tree, is my understanding. Am I misinterpreting it?
No,
It-
I think
okay.
The goal is to provide street trees.
Right, and to protect them.
So I thought, I mean, I think your question is, how do we help the individual property owner know what their right of way is? In the event they want to plant or remove a street tree. Right?
Yeah,
Because
but
that's really all we're talking about when we're talking about within the right of way.
but the table, if I recall, has you measuring from different spots in the road. So like, if I wanted to figure out what if my trees were in the right of way, that on Bishop Hollow, I might have to stand in the middle of Bishop Hollow and have my, and then with a tape measure and then try to figure in and then not get run over by a car.
You could do that, but that would be too dangerous. But
But-
you could also do it by simple math. Using the edge of the cartway. So if you have a 50, we're trying to do it in simple terms, maybe I better draw it out myself.
But every street is different, right?
Yeah, and that's the problem. Can't we just,
Why are we, that's, every other township, that's a public works. So if somebody calls and says, hey, I have a dead tree along the street. Public Works goes out, measures it, it's within the right of way. Public Works then will submit a hazard tree permit or say, take it down, it's our responsibility, or it's a healthy tree, no, we're not removing it. Up to you gotta go.
but
Why
that's
are we managing right of way trees?
because they're street trees and that's part of our purpose is that that's under our purview to preserve the street trees, is my understanding.
And here again, if you're just looking to simplify and help the individual,
Yeah,
we can refer them or attach this road evaluation sheet. That gives you those dimensional requirements for a particular road, whether it's Ellis or Bishop Hollow. or any of the
why
others.
can't we just come up with a standard if
Because it's all
you're,
different.
well,
And
no,
what
why
I'm
can't we
saying
just,
is,
why,
It's not all different.
well,
You
why,
tip-
why can't we say for the purpose of this ordinance that we're gonna say that the right of way or what, or however we want to
can't-
characterize it.
Sure.
Well, right, so let's come up with a different term and we not call it that. I mean, because it's,
But that.
How do we make it
right.
simplistic?
You can't say you have to, or you can do something in the right of way that's not the right of way. The right of way is a defined term.
mhm, right.
And there's specific dimensional requirements that we have along each roadway.
So what I would like, instead of making, if we're gonna use the table, then we need to have a table. If we're gonna attach one that basically says, that breaks it down and does the math for the homeowner. Because I really feel like we need to make it, if we're gonna get any kind of compliance, we have to make it as simple as possible. Because if we start telling a homeowner, that's, 85 years old, oh, you need to go on the website and then you need to look
Well,
at
no,
this
that's
and
what
then
I'm
you
saying.
need to subtract that and you need to find out what road you are on. But we can't put all that onus on, because I don't think,
Well, I can tell you one thing, when people want to build something on their
Mhm.
property, the onus is on them. So.
Right.
I mean, I can't do the design for them.
right,
They're filing the permit.
right,
So here again, if you're filing a permit to do work in the right of way, it's your responsibility to know what the right of way is. I don't think it's any problem at all to attach the Excel spreadsheet to this ordinance to make it a simplified version. I don't think there's anything wrong with giving a simple diagram if we want to draw something up that really simplifies the math. I mean, it's basic subtraction.
yeah, I know,
Okay, it's not calculus, but all there really is on that Excel spreadsheet is the list of names of roads. And then you go over and you say, here's the cartway width, and here's the overall right of way. And so if the right of way is 50 feet, and there's only a few different dimensional requirements, it's either 33 or 50, and along major highways, it may be 80. But in most cases, on local roads, it's 33 or 50. What can sometimes change is with the cartway. So let's just say that you have a 25-foot cartway, 25-foot cartway and a 50-foot right of way. You could stand in the middle of that road and pull 25 feet from the center line, and you're going to get your right of way line. Or you could subtract half the width of the road, right, which is 12.5 feet, right? That would get you to the edge, right? And then you
That's simple math, but there's only one problem with that. When you clear for right of ways for like gas lines or something, that gas line or aqua line might be on the edge of that right of way. Right, be dead set on it. You can't go a foot on the other side of where that pipeline is. You may have 50, 75 feet.
well, that's
of
an easement,
clearance?
not right.
Well, what I'm saying, but it's considered right of way. You have a 50-foot right of way, like the gas company has or Aqua has 50-foot right. So the road can meander in that. So it's not a perfect science by just saying measure
certainly
from
not
your.
perfect science, and I don't think anybody is.
I mean, like I said before, Springfield does anything front yard setback of the house. Like
But the front yard setbacks measured from the right of way line. That's.
edge of
that's
road, say edge of, don't say right away, just say edge of road. Like 50 foot, 30 feet.
But that would
whatever.
change all of our zoning definitions. So I don't
Well-
think we do that.
Gonna manage asphalt.
What do you mean?
Trees removed or pruned in the right of way is utility or.
We're not even
Well,
doing
we-
pruning.
I
We're
mean,
just removals.
no, I mean, the utilities are supposed to, but they never come in. So
I'm
it's
saying,
just, I mean, I just think it's.
I don't think they're required anyway, but if you say,
They are required, but they don't come in.
Have a simple definition, no trees can be removed in the right of way. They attach the little, like that little detail, calculation, and they throw it out it's like a front. Yeah.
Well-
Keep it simple.
Right, well, that's what
Keep it simple.
that's what they should be doing, but it's just, so for instance, I've been trying to figure it out. And I can't find, for one thing, I can't find that table. I know I've looked on the website.
I will say that table is sometimes difficult for you to find. I
Exactly.
have to search.
So, I mean, so right there, we have to make it easy for, we aren't gonna get any compliance if we don't make this simple.
that's
And
why
you're
I
gonna
say-
overwhelm people by saying, because then we have to define what the cart width is, and then people are gonna know, well, what the hell's that? So that has to be defined. So I'm just saying, I think if we're going to do that, then we need to do the math for them and have that part of our ordinance and break it down, just have another column or whatever on the table, or we come up with a table, duplicate that table and just say for our ordinance that this is list all the roads, and then here is, we've done the math for you. Here's what the right of way width is. Why can't we do that?
I guess we can.
Well, I don't think anybody's gonna go through all those steps to figure it out. They just want to be told, what are the rules?
I know, Trish, but I will tell you, I mean. In any ordinance and in any permit. There has to be some responsibility on the property owner.
I'm
I
not
mean,
denying.
You know, I'm sorry, I'm talking now as the code guy, right?
Yeah.
Zoning guy. You know, who goes through this on a daily basis and tries to evaluate, you know, a fair response to a permit, you know? And I will tell you, in most of what I see, people don't want to give us any information.
Oh, right.
Any, they don't want to do anything in order to get the homework or
Yeah.
to get the permit. They just want to say, well, you're the township, you're requiring that you do this.
Right.
I certainly agree that we should make it as convenient as possible. We should provide as much information as possible to allow them to give us the right information. And I think we can do that.
Hmm.
I think we can do it simply and fairly, but for us to go and do, here again, I think that we can provide a simple document that says, if you look at your chart and you live on a road that's 25 foot wide and has a 50-foot right of way, your right of way line is 12.5 feet from the curb, from the edge of the carpet. That to me is fairly simple. And if you want to plant a tree here, this is what you've got to add on the plan.
Or remove it is more what I'm worried about.
Or remove. I
I just think we need to make it as simple as possible, because remember, I'm an environmental regulator too. I'm in regulation. I do it all the time. I mean, and we're right in the process right now of revising our regulations, our implementing regulations. And so this is very similar to what I'm doing in my day job. And so what we've been trying to do is to keep everything clear and brief, to the point, and make it as simple as possible. And I think that if we, so where my only problem with making the applicant, and I totally agree with you, they need to give us the information, but I think we have a responsibility to help them out and to make it simple. Because then we're gonna have to check the math. I don't want to be having to check everybody's math. I want to be able to just look on a table and say, well, here's what it is. And then that way they know, we know, and it's going to be simple it'll simplify our review without having to do the math, to double check it, to make sure that they're right. That's just kind of how I selfishly, I'm looking at it that way.
To the permit application itself,
Mhm.
we could include that chart with a simplified diagram. I don't think that that's undoable.
Okay. Yeah, I
But
just,
right away isn't right.
I understand that.
I don't think we can manipulate or use that term in a different way. I think
Okay.
it's got to be the right way.
So either way, so we're just coming down, just to kind of wrap up this conversation, is that we're gonna do our best to make it as simple and clear for people to comply with the ordinance and figure out what the right of way is. So that they know what trees are under, and we're gonna make it so that it's safe, so they don't have to stand in the middle of the road, because I am not standing in the middle of Bishop Hollow or Gradyville Road, because I almost get run over, even just going out to the mailbox. So I really don't want to be standing in the middle of the road to try to figure out what the right of way is when I want to go plant a tree.
Never have to do that. Okay, there's another.
Okay.
And this goes back to that tree work permit. I think.
Yeah.
That whatever we decide as required parameters has to be recognized clearly in the ordinance. And then also reinforced by the permit application.
Right. So, okay, I agree with you. We're on the same page there. All right, so how much time do we have before, because we gotta get, because the planning commission's coming in here,
About
right?
30 more minutes.
All right, let's jam through some of this stuff. So one of the things that I had in my notes that from our conversations was we were gonna add something like another like range, and it was somewhere between the, hold on, let me see if I have.
Range of what?
Hold on. So under the tree replacement formula, we were gonna add a new category that was 12 to 18 inches DBH, but it didn't make, I couldn't remember why we were gonna do that, and it didn't make sense to me. I can't remember why we were gonna do that, when it seemed like the 13 to 19 sort of covered it. Does anybody remember that?
It seemed like John Rice.
Okay. So here's what I had. So we were gonna add a new category, 12 to 18, with 2 replacement trees, but it didn't seem to make any sense when I was looking at it. Okay. All right, so that's why I didn't include it. So I just didn't want you guys to think I ignored y'all. Okay. Okay, so are we good with the tree replacement formula?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Okay, and then. So, and then we did have, and I think I might have forgotten to add this, but we were. Oh, I had a question, so for the replacement tree, it says, was the 2.5 inch to 3 inch DBH, is that a good? That good enough? All right, so then let's go to my question
What was
then.
it? 2.5, 3?
It said 2.5 inch to 3 inch DBH is what the minimum size is for replacement.
That should be caliber.
Oh, we changed that to caliper. Okay. All right. So Andy. What is the, how do I word this? Does the township expect those replacement trees to more or less stay for their life, for whatever their longevity is, for their lifespan? And is there any kind of protection afforded to them if, say, someone in the future wants to remove them? So would it be out of the realm of consideration to add that if there's replacement trees that need to be removed, that they would need to come forth? Now, okay, so here's the problem. Private property, that would be almost impossible to do unless we have a really strong inventory of, like, on a GIS database of where all the replacement trees are, which I don't think we have. So at a minimum, I would say that for an association of replacement trees associated with land development, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to have some expectation for that, especially if there's something like a homeowners association or something like that that's associated with it.
I think it should be made clear that in any land development project, it's required to have a landscaping plan, which we
Right.
have been getting, but it's not clear in our subdivision ordinance that that's required. It does revert back to this ordinance because this ordinance is still fairly new.
Right.
So I personally, I think that there's got to be a requirement under the subdivision ordinance that requires a landscaping plan, just like it does the utilities, just like it does a stormwater grading plan, just like it does a zoning plan. All of what we do as a component in that land, overall reported land development plan. I think it's got to be made more official that your landscaping plan has to be part of the land development plan. It has to identify all the requirements of this ordinance. It has to identify the locations of the number of trees that are being replaced, where they're at. And in my opinion, this ordinance should say all trees required by the ordinance during a land development project or under a tree work permit shall be protected. I don't know what's the best word, in perpetuity, but I don't know how that's enforced. But it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and I agree with you, to require, and I mean, recently, if a land development project happens, like Porsche, John went out there, he reviewed the landscaping that was approved as part of that permit. Now, that was done prior to the ordinance being in place, but I think you did an inventory account, made sure that they were all there, identified any plantings that were dead, required them to be replaced. That's the way it should work.
Right.
That is in that inspection that John did is a way for them to close out the project from a development.
Right.
To get their monies and their escrows back and to meet the land development plan. How that would ever be re-inspected, like in our stormwater ordinance, there's an operation and maintenance agreement requirement, and that requires or allows the township to enter the property anytime, reasonable time, over a 10-year period to make sure that that system is still functioning as required. But it's only for that 10-year period.
Right.
So I think your question is valid. I think that we can make requirements that specify this plan has to be added to the subdivision plan, it has to include all of these things. And it has to include a note that any trees or shrubs that were required as part of that plan have to be remained and replaced if they in fact die.
Okay,
I don't know how to answer your question about the longevity of that. But getting back to the situation we faced with Mr. Nolan's project, that was, I thought, a good conversation to have, a good way to have, was the fact that they were choosing to locate and I didn't disagree with Mr. Nolan at all, that it made sense to put them on private property. But I think that conversation was lost with the planning commission. It was their choice to put it on private property.
right,
You would have preferred it on the HOA lands or or along the streets or something that you could manage.
Right.
Right, there was
Right.
better protection. I just thought that thought got lost in the shuffle.
well, yeah, because they weren't listening.
So in my opinion, I think that there could be some conversation with the solicitor to say, if a developer chooses to put it in on private property, there has to be an easement.
Mhm.
And the trees have to be maintained in perpetuity as they would in any HOA.
Right.
Or common grounds associated with the development.
Yeah, okay,
I think that's gotta be, obviously, there's a lot to that. I think that's gotta be a conversation.
yeah, absolutely. So, because I mean, if there isn't some level of expectation that those trees have a level of protection, there's no point of requiring
Right.
a replacement. So it's just,
And the real, I mean, here again, I keep going back to this private property component, because here again, if the tree work permit is going to allow a review of this committee and to require replacement trees on private property, how does that get addressed? Because that question is out there. It's
Right.
not identified. And speaking of that, as I'm looking at section 158-8, under general, it says the commission shall have exclusive custody and control of street trees, public trees in the township, as well as trees on public land,
mhm,
period. So I think in some
158,
way
wait, that was
should-
150.
That should also address land development. And should address, the canopy and protecting and replacement trees that we're saying, if you remove 6 or more cumulatively over this period of time, they've got to be paid.
right. Yeah, and I think that's a component that's missing too, is like the maintenance part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, truly,
I
so,
think the first question we have to discuss with the solicitor is, what is the standard on private property? And if private property is out of bounds, then I think we have to amend the tree work permit criteria. And solely focus on land development. And street trees.
but so is it really the solicitor's decision, or is that really the board of
Well, I think
supervisors?
ultimately, he's gonna give his opinion legally.
Yeah.
You're gonna produce something that you think you want, right? You're gonna have the conversation
Mm-hmm.
with him. And then, here again, it's gonna ultimately be the board's decision. Based upon his evaluation and what your comments are.
With all these unknowns, is it, meeting with them, like a workshop on the day, or is that like?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is probably where we need to go. But here again,
Exactly. I mean, it's just like, because we can speculate all we want and kind of
Right.
chew on, and he's gonna,
Right.
exactly, and that's why I've been reluctant to spend a ton of time.
I don't think we should.
But I think it does start with this conversation.
Yes.
We've got to point out what is problematic in the ordinance as it's written.
Okay.
Right? And that's all we're doing. We're not, I don't think anybody's criticizing anything. I think that we're just pointing out what's problematic. And what the questions are that are out there and how that communicates to the public.
Mhm.
Right, because obviously we want the public to buy into this.
Right.
And everybody to comply.
Right,
So if we're having questions, how do we convey confidence to the public when they come in and ask these questions.
Right.
We need these answered, we need it tightened up, we need more clarity. And then, and I think those bullet points, so maybe you don't revise it, maybe we just have bullet points that we need to discuss within each section of the code or the ordinance as it's written, to have that meeting with us.
Okay.
If we got him for 2 hours, I think it's really.
Mhm.
Right away, street.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So I'll volunteer to meet since I've sort of dug into this a lot. I would love for you to be there.
Well,
That's fine, probably gonna be after.
I mean, here again, I can't assume his schedule. What I can do tomorrow is I can copy your committee, John and Mr. Neese, and put it out to Mr. Spore to see when he would have a date and time available. Maybe he wants to throw out 2 or 3 that he knows he can accommodate.
Yeah.
And then we can work it that way.
Maybe some word that is.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine.
Mm-hmm. Just if you could avoid Tuesdays. I'm in DC.
I'm sorry.
Just Tuesdays are bad for me, just because I'm in DC usually.
And then I'll note that it should be sometime after.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm available. I mean,
I'm available, I guarantee it.
oh, yeah, believe me, I'm sure he's very busy. I'm just going to know, let us know a couple of dates and times that you may be available between now and the second week of September.
And you might want to say, this might require about 2 hours.
Yeah.
Two hours.
I'll copy everybody on it. so
Okay.
Everybody's.
okay. And so what we can add to the list is the tree front, the shade tree fund, because I have no idea how we're expected. Because honestly, I was going to throw that out to Mr. Nolan, but then I thought, I was like, we have no sideboards on this. I have no idea how we're supposed to calculate any of that. So I have questions in my notes. We don't have to go over that here, but in
So
the
you
comments.
suggest like it be in lieu of?
Yeah, so the commemorative tree fund, and it says in the ordinance that there's an option, like if you can't, like, for instance, on Stony Knoll.
Right.
They had a ton of trees they had to replace, and they didn't have the space to do it. So their option could have been
Right.
to pay into the fund. But there's no parameters unless there's something else in another ordinance that I'm not aware of how to calculate that amount. And so, and it should not only include for the trees themselves, but for maintenance, for the planting, the watering, because we know we can't expect George's crew to do all this.
And with maintenance, with the labor.
So I think,
Overhead for.
so maybe what we want to do is,
Legally, that's how they did it around here, they went the whole process. Overhead burden.
We do it all the
You burn your
time.
nose, but you can't.
No, I'm questioning it because we do that all the
What
time.
we can do is add a definition of fee in lieu of, and then within the definition, provide those parameters.
Right, and so,
That on fair market value of the number of trees that are being replaced with the same diversity of species.
right,
uh,
and then where they're gonna be planted.
You know, the cost of purchasing the required number of trees and the labor to install.
So,
Something like that.
right, so,
Because we do offer, we do recognize.
yeah, it's in there, but there's nothing, nothing else. It says, oh, you can pay, and there's no details on
Right.
what that is. So we need to talk about that. So if, your case with Radner's, it is like, then who's gonna be the responsible for, it's like, where are those trees gonna be planted? And then who's gonna be responsible for them to ensure that they live, who's gonna be maintaining it. So what? I have ideas, but if, okay, we can talk about that more. Because we're running late. All right, okay, so. Given the fact that we're kind of late here. Let's just jump down to 158-10. I'm sorry. So to D1. So the removal of disturbance of a heritage tree. So what it says that now is that no tree on public property or private property shall be considered a heritage tree under clause B or C, which I have no idea what that's referring to. Of the definition of a heritage tree in section 158-7B, because there isn't a B and C under B. And unless the commission has designated in writing as such as with reasoning, blah, 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 you guys can read this. It just seems to me that it puts a lot of responsibility on us as a commission to go out and identify all those trees and designate them, put it in writing, go through a process that allows an appeal, and everything else, when it seems pretty simple. What we've already said, that there's any tree that's over, that's 30 inches DBH or more, is a heritage tree. So I don't understand why we're having to go through all of this unless it's the concern again about regulating trees on private property. But what this does is basically cuts the legs out from under the commission from being able to preserve any of the heritage trees unless it's been designated. And so, and right now it's the only tree that's been designated is mine. That's
Well, the other problem is the inconsistency. Again, if you look in the first sentence, it speaks to public property, but then it also speaks to private property.
right.
So if it's on private property, it's the commission's responsibility to identify that, designate it as such by giving notice. So I don't know how that works. And I don't know that without you designating it, I don't believe that unless you designate it, we can.
We can
go
do
out and
anything.
enforce
No, there's nothing we can do with this statement in there. Just none of the trees that would qualify as a heritage tree can be protected, period. Unless
it.
it's
Unless on
designated.
Public property.
No, it says no tree on public property or private property shall be considered a heritage tree under clause B or C of the definition of heritage tree in section 158-7B, unless the commission has designated it in writing.
Previously, we said we were gonna strike that,
It's
talk about that.
It's- right, but it's still in there. I mean,
Coming out.
But it's not out.
Huh?
But it's not
I
out.
understand it because the attorney has a look.
I don't think, but we don't have confirmation that that's gonna actually happen. So that needs to be part of the conversation.
We do, because we're gonna meet with him, he's gonna review it. He has not had the time to review any of this stuff. I'm not saying he hasn't had 2 years, he hasn't done anything in 2 years to review it. That's why we want this meeting. We can get that stuff out of there and revise to meet our request.
I'll keep going. So. Okay, we're gonna talk about that too. All right, and I think that's probably the last,
It might make sense, Trish, that
Mhm.
once we set this meeting, high level items that we're really concerned about, and then in a copy and paste form, these are the things.
so I will prepare an agenda. And I will have objectives. And I'll do exactly that. And I'll have the questions and we can provide the questions in advance. And we'll And I want to set an expected outcome. I really, we need some answers now, not, please don't kick the can down the road for another 2 years. So,
And at the conclusion of that meeting. Okay.
timeline,
Vision that can go in front.
right, because it'll be a timeline that's going to be associated in that.
I think we get into it. I mean, it's
I get it. I totally do.
start time now. We'll get those 2 hours.
Well,
We'll get in, spend some ample time, finalizing it. Back for us, review, for clear and precise.
right. Okay. All right. All right, I will do that. Let me make a little to do. All right, I can do that. All right. I don't know, Andy, is there anything that you think that maybe you and I should set up a time to go over this and tighten up maybe some of this? Would that be worthwhile?
Yeah.
Okay,
Let's get a date. Let's see if we can get a date for Rich.
yeah,
And
let's do that.
Maybe within the next, I know, the end of August, I'll be away for 2 weeks.
Okay,
So if you want to do something next week or so, Heather can help
okay,
arrange that as well.
all right. Yep, I'm available. I have no life. I will be home. Okay. All right. Yes, we do. Okay. All right. Let's move on. Tree inventory.
Nothing. We still gotta go, where we supposed to go?
And time on.
So we need the training. We need to do the training again. Is that it? So can you and Tom work with John to set a date for that? And because I don't think we're going to be able to do it during our meetings. Our meetings seem to either we have,
I mean, unless we have any, if we don't have applications, Heather lets us know that. We should not come in.
Okay.
Be outside.
Okay.
Especially.
all right. Well, then I'll let you guys decide that.
The ordinance covered with Rich.
All right.
So
So we had a meeting, another meeting that was, we were gonna do, but you weren't available on that Thursday. Can we just go for every Thursday until we can all get there?
Why don't we just pick the night of our meeting? We're all gonna be here and blow through this agenda in 10 minutes and get out there.
Well,
Thank you.
That works.
10 minutes.
or why
in and
don't
out.
we? Okay. All right. Okay. So the next meeting. We're gonna do trees.
if there's no application,
Right, and they take 5 minutes.
there's no application, we don't meet here.
Okay,
The Supero or whatever's gonna be on there, the one
yeah,
Westchester Pike's gonna be on there.
Mhm.
We know that already,
Yeah, I'm saying.
unless
there's
it
no
gets,
application, we're not gonna be here.
I get that. As soon as I get that, I'll get it over to John. He can get a review letter together and you guys can just go over it.
I'm gonna assume.
yeah, next,
He was supposed to go to planning tonight. He pushed it back to August because his landscaping plan was not finalized, so have it in the next couple weeks.
okay,
no.
Oh.
No, it's like 3 trees they're taking down that are. They're joining 2 driveways. It's about from here to that podium over there. It's not far. There's like a dead maple that's all rotted and river birch. Not much. Couple bushes.
Let's talk about it when the meeting's here. It'll take 5 minutes.
all right.
12.4.
So. Did you have, so are we ready to move on to the fall tree planting? the EAC?
You can go right past it.
Okay.
I've heard nothing.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from that, I'll just share is that we would. There's issues with getting like trees of the trees that would go out onto the public or private property would be like these small little whips and no one wants to probably take care of those, or they don't want to look at trees in a tube for a really long time. So EAC instead is working with William Garrett to have trees planted out there. And so I think that's the direction that they're going. And, but we can talk about that next time, and I'll look through Cindy's email to see. I did see an email. I wasn't able to dig into it, so. All right. And then, so I had met with Curtis Silva, the chair of the Planning Commission, and to talk over how we can better coordinate, and so that and he agreed that the commission needs to be educated kind of on the ordinance and what its purposes are and what our reviews are going to look like and what they can expect. And so I had suggested that maybe we do that this month, but given we have all these questions, I don't feel prepared in order to do that and comfortable until we have some of these questions about what are we doing on private property? What are we doing with some of these other things? And I think I would rather wait to have that conversation until we have more clarity, and maybe after we have this meeting with the.
I think the only thing to remember is that the planning commission is the most active on land development.
Right.
So I think it's really important for you and he to talk about how we amend subdivision land development code to overlap with this. And maybe get some, how he feels that his board may react to the questions about when a land development plan proposes replacement trees. I mean, he would be a good
Okay.
support, to get some help from.
All right.
actually from.
So I'll coordinate with him, continue that and have that conversation, but I just don't feel like I'm ready. We're ready.
Yeah, I don't think you have to get into the weeds with the private property stuff,
Mhm.
because that's really under your purview and not so much theirs.
Right. But that didn't happen at the last planning meeting. So we got right into that, and I don't want to be caught off guard
No, no,
again.
I understand, but that was because there wasn't a clear understanding of how it came to be. That this was a land development project
Right,
that had to comply with both the subdivision land development code, which they oversee, and the replacement tree program that you oversee.
right.
And I just don't think it was clear to them that they were choosing
Right,
to locate these trees that were required on private property.
right. Even though I said that,
Sorry,
even though I said that.
even though you said it a couple of times.
Okay, all right. So I'll reach out to Curtis. Okay. Did we have any commission comments? Items for the next agenda? We're going to just review any permits, and then we're gonna go outside. Is that the plan? Okay. Okay, seeing nodding heads. We have no public, so there's no comment. All right. Motion to adjourn.
Before everybody leaves, we'll stop by.